everyone. Welcome to the culminating event for this program. My name is Nico Williams. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which is the organization that sponsors this. And with that, I'd like to introduce my Pomar. Think of him as almost the president of our local organization, just to say a few words.
So good morning. My name is Julian Harden. As you can see, I'm a major in the United States Army. This is my unit. This unit is called OSA, affectionately, Operational Support Airlift Activity. So this is a National Guard entity. We call it a multi-compo unit, which just means there's active duty people that work in this building. There's National Guardsmen. I'm a National Guardman that work in this building. And then we have a couple of reservists that don't work in this building, but they work up the street. And we're responsible for all the fixed-wing aircraft in the National Guard. So we have 54 states and territories, Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico, all the aircraft down in the Virgin Islands, any National Guard entity that has a fixed-wing airplane in any state, and every state has a fixed-wing, at least one aircraft. And then all of our National Guard assets that are deployed overseas. So in the Horn of Africa, anything that's in Kuwait right now, and Iraq. We don't have anything in Afghanistan anymore. So this unit governs all of those aircraft. We have 2 aircraft right here, and then DC National Guard, which is not a state, but DC National Guard also has an airplane, and they're at the end of the flight line. So that's what OSA does.
Oh, there's 2 inside.
And then you'll notice there's a few kind of levers that have some twisted wire attached to them. For ask that you just not pull on them because that wire will break. I'll have to get a mechanic out here to change it. They get a little grumpy when they have to do extra work. So other than that, please hop on in, take pictures all you want. If you got any questions, I'm here.
They saw today. What'd you see?
We saw the Cessna 500 airplane and the C-1.
What else?
I saw
a Black Hawk.
And we also saw a Beechcraft King Air plane.
Yeah, good job. So a King Air, a Citation, and a Black Hawk. All right. So really appreciate you guys coming out. We're gonna take a couple of minutes. So I'm a major in the United States Army, so that's one pathway for a pilot. But more commonly in the Army is something called a warrant officer, and their rank looks a little different than mine. So I'm going to bring up Mr. Phil Lewis. That's the gentleman that was out there with the airplane with you guys. He's going to talk about the warrant officer pathway, like what that is and what they do. We'll talk about that very briefly, and then we're going to transition to Colonel Bullock, and then we're going to end with Colonel Knight.
The main difference, I would say, between a warrant officer and what we like to call a commissioned officer, even though it's kind of the same thing, is opportunities in getting the job, right? In the initial beginning of before when I decided what I want to do is college degree versus not college degree. Can you become a pilot and not have an actual 4-year college degree? In the Army, which is the only program that allows you to do this, is that you can, right? You have the opportunity to apply and become a pilot even though you haven't completed your college degree. Even though most warrant officers do, like myself, I graduated 4-year degree, did that route. However, you do have that opportunity. The second aspect is, as a warrant officer, you are a tactical and technical expert, which means that you spend your entire career making your craft the best that you possibly can. Right? So my entire career, all 19 plus years I've been doing this, has been aviation. I've been flying the entire time. Every morning I get up, eat, drink, sleep, flying, right? I'm training, I'm writing an SOP or some kind of procedure for somebody to do. That's all I do every single day. Whereas Major Harden, he'll spend a lot of time doing the more administrative stuff. He doesn't get to be in the cockpit as much as I am, right? So I'll sit somewhere at the end of my career, probably about 6,000 hours of flying, and he'll probably have, what, 200? 150? I'm just I'm kidding, but he'll have about half of that, right? Because he'll have a lot more administrative work to do on his side, and he also gets to fly, whereas I only get to fly.
A little bit about me. I started off in the Richard Allen projects of Philadelphia, the hood, the ghetto. Single parent mom, never met my dad, that dude, right? So I didn't even know how to spell college. But I ended up going in the Air Force, and I ended up enlisting in the Air Force in aircraft maintenance. So I started off with rockets, missiles, bombs, and guns, on aircraft. I thought it was cool. On the flight line, there was all of us. It was aircraft maintenance and weapons and electronics and, like he mentioned, engines and hydraulics and admin and just all types of maintenance professionals. And the reason why I say that is because I loved it. I had a team, I had several teams. We deployed together. We went on, like they said, temporary duty, TDY trips together. I even went fishing and camping while on TDY with aircraft maintenance. So it's a lot more people than pilots and a lot more diverse careers. I later got several degrees and ended up becoming an officer and went back to the flight line. I liked it so much, I said, now I want to be in charge of the flight line. Who better to be in charge of the flight line than somebody who used to work there? So now I'm aircraft maintenance commander. My last two assignments, I was the middleman between the United States Senate and the United States Air Force. My office was on Capitol Hill, and I did that for 3 years, flying back and forth with Nancy Pelosi and doing a lot of cool stuff. I even escorted Muhammad Ali to his seat during the inauguration of President Obama when he first got elected. And so a lot of cool stuff for being aircraft maintenance. All right? And then I left Capitol Hill, and then I became the commander at Andrews Air Force Base for aircraft maintenance for the F-16s, the planes that protect the nation's capital. I say all that because there are just different routes that you can go. Now, they mentioned, how many more hours that the warrant officer has in the cockpit than the pilot. Aircraft maintainers have more hours than that. So imagine spending anywhere from 30 to 40 hours a week in the cockpit. And then multiply that by, I've been in for 30 years. I'm retired now. So that's a lot of time I get to spend on the flight line, on the aircraft, doing a lot of cool things. And the reason why I say that is that pilots is not the only position in aviation. You guys are part of aviation, and it's not the only position in aviation. Maintainers. Some of you may want to go into finance. Somebody has to buy these aircraft. Somebody has to finance these aircraft. Somebody has to design and build the aircraft. And then, of course, I'm a maintainer. So as you go through this program and you come across a lot of people in the aviation industry, ask questions, not just about being a pilot, because some of the best pilots are those who know the aircraft as well. So what I want you to do is think about that. Now I'm gonna say this, and then any questions you have, feel free to ask. I've done this for many years. I worked on many aircraft and been around a lot of people. So in the beginning, who heard of the Wright brothers? Wright brothers? All right. So let's take it back there, history. In the beginning, there were only maintainers, and there were nobody else. Maintainers designed the aircraft, maintainers built the aircraft, and maintainers flew the aircraft. And then once upon a time, somebody decided they wanted a different title because they didn't want to design aircraft and they didn't want to maintain the aircraft. They just wanted to fly, and we called them pilots. But never forget, in the beginning of time, there were maintainers, and there were nobody else. Maintainers designed the aircraft, they built the aircraft, and they flew the aircraft. I'm retired Lieutenant Colonel Reggie Bullock. Any questions?
Well, we're going to do this a little bit different. I'm only going to speak to a question. So you got to have a question. I know you didn't have any questions for the last two, but you got to have a question in order to hear from me. Question.
How many years did you
What's
work
your
in-
name?
Frank Simpson.
Okay, Frank.
How many years did you work in the army?
Okay.
Or not the artist, like, how many years did you work as a colonel?
Okay, as a colonel, a little less years. But from the time that I was a second lieutenant, when I got commissioned, all the way to the time that I retired, it was 29 and a half years. So almost 30 years, right, exactly. So, and that took me from second lieutenant, which is where you really start out with the gold bar, all the way up to full bird colonel, so the eagles that you see. Right, exactly. So, all right, so that was 29 and a half years, and I've been retired now for 15 years. Okay, next question, I saw another hand. We're coming to you. I want to get the students first. Okay. Yes.
My name is Caitlin, and can you explain your badges to me and like what they mean and how you got them?
Okay, all right, got a lot of them, so yeah, all right.
Well,
So
some of your favorites.
all right, some of my favorites. So, right, so this is the badge that you see on a traditional flight suit. Right, exactly. So that the lieutenant colonel has. So you got my wings, and these are senior wings. So you get a senior wing, you get a star, right, on your wings. You get a master wing. Wait, you got masters? Yep, exactly. What are your wings? You got master? Oh, okay, all right, exactly. When you get the number of hours he has, then you get master wings, right? But these are senior wings. So I was a commissioned officer, so didn't get as many flying hours, right, as the warrant officer did. And then of course you have your name and your rank. And then of course, you know, here, and this is not your traditional, right, Army uniform. So you're not gonna see anybody running around the flight line looking like this. They'll either look like that or they'll look like that. Right, exactly. So this is just, you know, for purposes of coming out and talking to you guys. Right, so these are some of the units that I've been assigned to. U.S. flag, you know, that is 1st Cavalry Division. I served in 1st Cavalry Division, Fort Hood, Texas. 2 different occasions. I commanded my company there, and I went back to command the battalion right there as well. Right, other units that I've been assigned to, so that's what the others, 101st Airborne Division, so that's what these are about. And then I went to school at Tuskegee, we're the Golden Tigers. Exactly. So you see the tiger right on the back. Okay, did that satisfy your curiosity, son? Okay, I'll come back to you. Yeah.
My name is Russell. I have a question.
Russell?
Yeah.
Okay.
How does it feel being a female aviator?
How does it feel to be a female aviator? Yeah, I don't know if it feels a whole lot different from being, you know, just a regular being an aviator. But you know, most of my career it's a male-dominated field. It always has been, right? It still is today, right? Exactly. So don't feel any different. I don't feel any special, right? But you know, I just feel good about being able to be in the field of aviation. You know, there were a lot of trailblazers, right, that came before me, right? As Major Harden mentioned to you, we went to school at Tuskegee. So we went to school hearing about the Tuskegee Airmen, right? We walked the same grounds that the Tuskegee Airmen walked. We went out to Moulton Field where the Tuskegee Airmen learned to fly. So that's the good feeling about being an aviator, you know, not just a female aviator. Okay, yes, sir.
My name is Siler, and what was your favorite aircraft?
Siler, what was my favorite aircraft? So when I started out, I don't know, do they still have Hueys out here? I see a few Hueys flying around.
A couple of them still.
Yeah, exactly.
First in the garden.
Yeah, exactly. So I started out flying the UH-1H, right, exactly, and then transitioned into the aircraft that you got a chance to see was the Black Hawk, right, exactly, you know, so kind of like going from a Volkswagen to a Cadillac, you know, if you want to equate it to cars. So the Black Hawk's a great aircraft. When I came on the active duty, Black Hawk was just coming into the inventory, right? So it's been around for a while. It's a workhorse, right? It's been around for a while. So I think we're gonna see it for a while before they transition into another aircraft. I'm gonna come back to you. Yeah, okay. Yes, sir.
My name is Sachio Davis.
What's your name?
Sachio Davis.
Okay, Sachio.
So my question is, what made you want to be a pilot? Like,
What
that
made
start?
me want to be a pilot? I didn't know a lot about aviation. I didn't grow up, you know, around aviators. You know, I didn't know a whole lot of people that were aviators until I got to college. Right, exactly. And there were still many of the Tuskegee Airmen that were still around. Actually, the person who started to teach the Tuskegee Airmen to fly was still on campus at Tuskegee at that time. Right, if you know your Tuskegee history or Tuskegee Airman history, Chief Alfred C. Anderson, right, exactly, was still on campus at Tuskegee at that time. So just learning the history, right, I had never, before I went to college, I had never even flown in an airplane before. Right, exactly. So when I went off to summer camp at ROTC to Fort Raleigh, Kansas, that was the first time that I flew. And when I got introduced to Army Aviation when I was at ROTC summer camp, I came back to Tuskegee and said, hey, that's what I want to do. Right, I want to fly helicopters. Okay, all right. All right, I'm gonna come back to you. I want to see if anybody else has one. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Judy. Jody. Okay.
And I was just wondering, what was the hardest thing you had to deal with, I guess, in your 29 years?
What's the hardest thing I had to deal with in my 29 and a half years? That's a good question. It wasn't easy. Right, but even the hard things I appreciate, those things, I may not have appreciated them as much then when they were happening to me. But you're in a position, and you will be in this position, and we all are in this position of always having to prove yourself, always having to start over. Sometimes when, the majority steps in the room, they look like this, people automatically assume certain things about them. They say, hey, wow, that person's really capable. She's a colonel in the United States Army. Right, I didn't always get that. Right, exactly. There's always that bit of doubt. Right, exactly. Okay, how did you get here? Right, who do you know? Right, exactly, they got you here. So just having to prove yourself over and over and over again. Pretty much starting over from square one at every assignment that you're in. But if you're good, you don't have to work that hard to prove yourself. So, right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Hi, my name is Michael Melton.
Hi,
and I was
Michael.
wondering, what year did you earn the most badges, or what year was your best?
Ooh. I think earning the badges, that you don't really work to earn the badges. Right, they just come. You do the good work and you get the badges. But anytime you have an opportunity to command, right, which is what most commissioned officers strive to do, is a good time. Working with soldiers, taking care of soldiers and their families, right, as a company commander, I got a chance to command a company 2 times. Right, I commanded a company as a captain, right, and then I commanded a company as a major. Right, the company that I commanded as a major, I got to deploy to Mogadishu, Somalia. Right, exactly. So if you ever heard of Black Hawk Down, yeah, that's where we were. Exactly. So anytime you get a chance to command, and then I got a chance to command as a lieutenant colonel as well. So anytime you get a chance to work with soldiers, work with troops, take care of people, take care of soldiers and their families, that's the most rewarding time. Yeah, okay, all right.
Have you ever been in a life or death situation?
Have I ever been a life? Well, okay, right. Where's my maintenance officer? Exactly. So when I came in, most of your maintenance officers in the Army were women, right? Exactly, because we didn't have a lot of women flying the attack aircraft, or being assigned to attack units. So I was a maintenance test pilot, right? So what does a maintenance test pilot do? When the mechanics fix the aircraft, you get up there and try to make it fail, right, before you put it back out on the line. Right, exactly. So I say, some of the things that happened, right, during the time that I was probably doing some of those test flights, that was probably some of the most challenging times in aviation, but rewarding as well, because that you were the one that was standing between the flight line of putting that aircraft on the flight line and getting it out of maintenance, right? So you had to be really, really good at what you did. Okay. All right, who else? I know I'm standing between you and pizza and awards, right? All right. Yes, sir.
Yes, in a way. You obviously are, in our minds now, in retrospect, were such a pioneer. And what consider the other people who are now on the forward side of life, looking forward to them, that would inspire them to kind of make sure they do the things that you did?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because that reminds me I brought something for show and tell, right? Exactly. So, yeah. Anybody know who this is?
Bessie Coleman.
Bessie Coleman. Yeah.
All right, everybody heard of Betsy Coleman? Let's see if you're, show of hands if you heard of Betsy Coleman before. All right, yeah, exactly. So yeah, pioneer, right? Here's your real pioneer, right here. So Betsy Coleman flew airplanes over 100 years ago, right? Exactly. 1921 is when she got her pilot's license. Right, first African-American female to get a pilot's license. Who knows where she had to go to get a pilot's license? No, Dad. All right, who knows where she had to go to get a pilot's license? She had to go to France. She could not get a license as a pilot here in the beautiful United States of America during that time. Exactly. So what did she have to do that? She had to learn French. So at 23 years old, she learned to speak French. She got on a boat with no airplanes flying across the Atlantic to take her to France. And she went to a French flight school where she was the only woman in the class, the only minority in the class, the only African American, the only person of color that was in her class. Exactly, and that was in 1921. So when we talk about pioneers, Betsy did it, right? Betsy did it, and she did it over 100 years ago, right? Exactly. So it's Black History Month, right? Exactly. Betsy Coleman, right? Exactly. Yeah, know her name, know who she is, and tell everybody about her.
Colonel Knight, you're part of Black History as well.
Say again?
You're part of Black History as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you had a question there.
So here's the funniest thing. The question I wanted to ask you, I was hoping you would ask, and he actually did, my son. So he
Okay.
asked you what inspired you, and that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, fantastic. All right, anybody got a last question? No last questions? Okay, all right.
All right. Thank you, Colonel.
So what we kind of do here is kind of grassroots. You guys don't In your aviation career, should you continue to, as a pilot specifically, the next step for you guys would be to go and earn what we call a private pilot certificate. That allows you to fly in what we consider to be the national airspace as a legalized FAA recognized pilot. The first step of that is what we call ground school. It's where we go and we teach you, and you may actually sign off in a logbook and say that you've learned the necessary materials. It's about a 40-hour course. So we teach you this ground school, and then at the culmination of that, you go and you take what we consider to be like a standardized FAA exam. And then the next step would be 15 hours, or you start your flying. And the first major milestone when you start flying is what we call a solo. It's the first time you get to get in the aircraft by yourself and go and fly what we call a traffic pattern, big circle in the sky, come back and land. You do that 3 times, and now you're a solo student. All right, so Naomi is in a program with the East Coast chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen here in the National Capital Region. She's over at College Park this morning, and the East Coast chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen, they provide at no cost to the parent ground school and 15 hours of flight instruction. So she was selected. She was one of 12 students that was selected. We interviewed them the first weekend in January. So she's one of 12 students over there. She's going through ground school right now. So this summer, Naomi should solo. In order for you to do that, you have to be 16 years old. So some of you guys just didn't qualify for that. And then you got to be ready to like learn at another level. You got to be able to take another step. So this is in aviation, we have several different steps. So you guys are at the first step that we would consider. This is just kind of exposure to see if you're even interested in aviation, if piloting is something that you think you want to do or can do in the future. The next step would be to either go to school at what we consider to be a 141, a degree granting program. Delaware State, Hampton, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore is a school like that where you go and you learn how to become a pilot. You can do that in college, or you can do it in what we consider like the general aviation space. You can just go to your local airport and learn how to fly. So that's what Naomi's doing. So if you guys all just join me in a round of applause, that's a significant